conditions.
Okay, and then the content warning for this chapter contains discussion of fictional religious themes and symbolism.
Yeah.
Alright, so this is chapter 9, With Abundant Joy. Do you want to be the narrator for this, or do you want me to be the narrator for this?
I'll read the narrator. Do you want to do Curlo's voice?
Yeah.
Okay, Matuna. I feel like you did Matuna in the past.
Yeah, I do use my Solix voice, basically, but yeah, I do like doing that one.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I'll defer most of the voices to you.
Okay.
I'll do Arania, I guess. She has like one line. Who did Milan last time?
Probably me.
Okay,
Because
fair.
Nepeta voice.
Yeah,
Although
there you go.
We've both done Nepeta voice.
Well, I don't do a good one, so I'll leave that to you. I'll do the one Latula line.
Okay.
Well, I think we're good then.
Cool.
All right.
I'm just kind of aimlessly scrolling.
Yeah. That's the thing. Like, a lot of these chapters have a bunch of characters speaking, so figuring out who's talking, it takes a minute. Several sweeps in the past. Gold District, North Alternian capital.
Hey, my resplendent gold-blood brother. Do you have a minute to spare?
Kurlos could see from the way that the gold blood looked that he was in need of a certain measure of salvation. Salvation that the mirthful messiahs could offer up, if he were but willing to indulge for a few moments.
Brother!
Called out again, following the troll down the street. He had a haunted look in his eyes, the look of one of the gold-bloods who'd spent too much time staring into the green abyss of the felt. Kurlos knew the type well.
What?
It's I was gonna say it's Matuna.
Oh, it is. Okay.
Goldblood stopped, turned to look at Kurlos. There was something down inside his gaze that Kurlos almost felt uncomfortable to see.
What the fuck do you want?
Suddenly, Kurlos was struck by the realization that this troll wouldn't be swayed by the normal methods of persuasion. He wasn't looking for meaning or purpose in his life. He'd seen plenty of that already. He was looking for a way out.
My brother.
Kurlos said quietly.
You look like you've seen enough hell for the both of us. Would you mind if I were to buy you something to eat?
I really like your Kurlos, by the way.
Thanks.
2 days before 12th Perige's Eve, Rust District, North Alternian capital. Kurlos stared intently as Matuna and Arania checked the wetware headset that Matuna would be using to broadcast his consciousness into the felt. They'd had many conversations on the subject in the last 3 sweeps, and Kurlos saw it as akin to the act of communing with the messiahs in many ways. He'd come to a very different understanding of the mirthful ones in the last few sweeps. When he'd been younger, he saw one true path to their abundant salvation. But then he'd met Matuna, a young man who had stared directly into the ultra-black void of the deep felt and returned to tell the tale.
It's definitely fleet tech.
Matuna said, looking at Arania.
It's fairly new, too. Last couple sweeps, I guess.
What does it mean? She asked. Matuna made a face that Kurlos was all too familiar with, the I don't have a clue face. He still had trouble simply letting go and tuning into the messiahs, a product of his time in the ultra-black.
It means someone can end up in a fleet black site for even putting their hands on this thing.
Matuna turned the headset over in his hands.
How did Cronus get his hands on it?
Arania shook her head. I don't know. That's what worries me. Had shown up early in the cafe that morning. A half sweep after they'd met, Matuna was a full sweep out of the fleet now and having trouble finding work. His stipend covered the basics, but it wasn't exactly living comfortably. Fortunately for him, his newfound brother blood Kurlos had prayed to the mirthful ones for guidance, and they had answered back with a truly wonderful piece of news. There was another way for a down-on-their-luck outcast to make a few extra credits on the side.
What are we even doing here?
Tuna glanced around nervously. He still had issues in crowds sometimes. When you spent that long inside of the mind of a god, it was natural for that to happen from time to time.
Not to worry, my righteous brother. We are here to meet a sister of the cause.
As if by the divine will of the mirthful messiahs themselves, Mule and Lejean walked into the cafe and waved at Kurlos. Mulin was in the space they designated as the garage for the old compression-driven van. She was checking the aging vehicle to make sure it worked. Kurlos had told her not to worry about it, that the mirthful ones always provided for him. But she had told him to shut up and let her handle it.
Hey, sister kitty bitch.
He called out to Mulin. She turned and smiled, her face smeared with engine grease.
Hey yourself, you giddy fuck.
She walked over and kissed him on the cheek.
What's going on? Not much, my most righteously tuned in olive blood sister.
He took a seat on the warehouse floor near where Mulin was checking the van's engine.
The Void Whisperers are specking out their magic goggles, and I can't be around that for too long. It starts talking to me, you know?
Mulin shrugged.
I've only tried it once. Wasn't a fan.
Her voice trailed off. Kurlos knew what she was talking about anyway. Was one of the few who actually did. She hadn't stared into the ultra black exactly. More like the blood black of the battlefield felt. That was a different kind of bad time. But it was a bad time all the same.
I know, sister. It's not something you have to think on if it doesn't bring joy. Mirthful ones don't want to see you sad anymore.
She nodded.
Yeah, good deal.
A pleasant silence fell over, and Kurlos watched Mulin work on the van, checking all the various parts of the engine. Finally, she finished and closed the engine's access hatch.
All things righteous?
Kurlos asked.
Yeah, it's all good.
Mulin sat down next to him on the floor, still covered in a film of grease. She sighed.
You worried about the job?
He shrugged.
Sister, I trust in the mirthful ones in all things. My sense is they'll provide what we need.
They didn't last time.
Silence.
They work in strange and wondrous ways sometimes. We were gifted with life that day.
He responded, smiling at her.
Yeah, not all of us.
Heard Mulin's voice crackling over the radio in the electric van.
Damara is inbound with the others. Multiple hostiles, and I can't get the text on the comm.
The sound of gunfire in the distance, scattered, dotted with methodical, Mulin's high-powered rifle making short work of the unrighteous damned. But it wasn't enough. Damara hauling a corpse named Rufio into the van. Kurlos shook his head.
The mirthful ones remind us that sometimes we can't appreciate true joy without true pain.
Mulin cleared her throat and spit to the side.
I love you, Kay, but sometimes you say some stupid fucking shit.
He didn't let her words bother him. She spoke largely out of pain. Even before she'd seen into the blood black, she'd seen enough plain blood for a lifetime. 3 of them had been working jobs for a while. A simple 1-2-3 was what it was usually called. A driver, a tech, and a shooter. Simple jobs that paid for their respective habits. Kurlos liked it the way it was. The mirthful ones liked it the way it was. He honored their chaotic names and his own devotion to breaking the order. Just enough to see the trickery that the messiahs demanded. He knew that Matuna and Mulin didn't think they were of the same mind, but that was okay. He called them brother and sister all the same. They were all of the same mind, after all, whether they knew it or not. Another Void Whisperer had contacted him, Sister Arania Circuit. Except she wasn't a sister of mirth or any other kind. She was a sister of knowledge, a master weaver who saw the tapestry of fate and had known the warp of every single inch of thread. She was dangerous. Kurlos's brother and sister in bond had decided that the opportunity would be worth hearing. Kurlos knew that the road would be a winding one, but he could feel that the mirthful ones waited at the end of it. Waited with a gift of the most righteous kind. One day before 12th Perige's Eve, Rust District, North Alternian capital.
My brother, are you indulging tonight?
Kurlos held a glass of the most potent soporific up to Mituna and offerance. Goldblood brother shook his head.
No thanks. Gotta stay sharp for tomorrow.
It made sense. One didn't face the felt, no matter the shade of black, with a mind that was clouded. Kurlos was under no such restrictions as long as he was sober by morning, so he indulged. His brothers and sisters did the same. Even not Sister Circuit, she couldn't face the Ultra Black anymore by fear of losing the rest of her mind, so she would content herself to peer in through the diffused lens of the Telnet terminal and help others, guide the others by feel. Well, we got one Damara line. I don't know who did Damara.
I think it was Clever back into it.
Yeah, you
Hey!
can just do it.
Oh.
Called out Damara, the rust-red sister with the righteous biomodifications that were going to start killing her soon.
I've got a toast to give.
She raised her glass.
To second fucking chances.
The others all agreed, and they downed their various drinks. The Messiahs were walking among them, spreading their joy even among the rustling fear and mistrust. Kurlos knew that some of the others worried about this job. They worried that the Messiahs wouldn't be there to watch over them. Maybe they didn't use the same words, but the meaning was obvious. The blood was everywhere in the electric van, and Kurlos couldn't feel the presence of the mirthful ones. Instead, there was only the sound of Damara's agony. Latula shivered in silence. The Void Whisperers were silent, and Mulin was on the run now. The Messiahs had abandoned them. If there was anything Kurlos was certain of, it was the absolute and righteous love of the mirthful Messiahs. For those that kept to the unbound path, there would be nothing but the assurance of the future. 12th Perige's Eve, Rust District, North Alternian capital. Kurlos sat in the front of the old van and whispered his devotionals to himself. There was nothing else to do until the rest of them were done. After a few minutes of that, he stopped and simply looked out of the window, waiting for the rest of his sisters to come running back from their excursion, guided by the mirthful ones themselves. In the background, Kurlos had the radio channel on. His brothers and sisters had this all in the proverbial bag, but he wanted to know if they needed him.
You need to get out now! Shut the hell up, we're about to breach the vault! Get ready to pop that thing open! You need to get out! Now!
What the fuck? Kurlos sat up straight. There was something so bad in his brother Void Whisperer's voice. Even over the neural link, he could hear it. From the back of the van, he heard a scream. From the bank, he heard the rapid pop of gunfire. He ran around to the back of the van and threw open the door. In the middle of the floor, Matuna was sprawled out, screaming. The scream of the ultra-black void space. Without even thinking, Kurlos ripped the wetware headset off Matuna's head.
Brother!
He screamed, tears filling his eyes.
Brother!
Matuna wasn't moving. Kurlos ran back to the cab of the van to get to the radio.
Mituna? Kurlos, you there?
He grabbed the receiver and shouted into it.
What the hell's happening, kitty bitch?
Check on Mituna, now!
Didn't matter. He'd already done that. The mirthful ones weren't watching him. He couldn't feel their placating presence at all. Gunfire sounded outside, cracking and roaring and getting closer as his sisters inside fought for their lives. In the back of the van, he had no idea if Matuna was alive or dead. He'd hit the final wall of the Ultra Black, and whether or not he was dead, Kurlos had no way to know. He couldn't even get in touch with Arania. The Void Whisperer's headset required special things in the brain that Kurlos didn't have. The mirthful messiahs were clear on that. Do not defile the body with implants. He didn't judge Matuna for that, but he couldn't use the wetware headset, and to try might very well kill him. He screamed with frustration, with anger, with rage. Mulin found Matuna first. She came running up to the electric van with him slung over her shoulder, her marksman's rifle in her free hand. She didn't know where Arania was. They would have to get out of there before the rest came. The messiahs were laughing at him. The messiahs were laughing at him. Kurlos ran to the back of the van again. Matuna was lying there, writhing on the ground. Writhing meant his brother wasn't dead, but he was in so much pain. The void space behind his eyes had worked into the brain and threatened to destroy all that he was. He screamed at them, screamed at the lying messiahs and their liar's message of hope. His brother was staring at him, but not seeing. Gunfire came closer, and then a whine, a metal scream that rose above the other noises. And Kurlos knew in that moment that the mirthful messiahs had not just abandoned him. They had become the very agents of his own destruction. With a scream of pure, unbridled rage that shook the edges of his very reality, Kurlos grabbed Matuna under the shoulders. He pulled him back, dragging him as quickly as he could. Brother Matuna flailed and screamed, and then went limp. He had just managed to get clear of the van when the first of the drones let loose a hail of stinging missiles, and the van turned into a roiling fireball of superheated gas and flying debris. Kurlos found himself hurtling backwards. The messiahs had abandoned him. His head struck the pavement, and the void black came for him, too.
Goddamn. Good shit as always, Shania.
Thank you.
Also, I am intrigued and pleased that the first named person who left a kudos on your fic was named Uwu Suckers.
On my screen, I don't know how it decides the ordering of them.
Me neither. Yeah, I think it's by time, but because like Kid is Great is the most recent one on this and the last few because we did them on the community stream, but like I don't know how it decides past that.